The Monkey's Paw is a scary story about a magic paw. It gives you 3 wishes. But every wish has a big price. Let's listen to the story. The Monkey's Paw Part 1. It was a cold and rainy night. Inside the small house called Laburnum Villa, everything was warm and quiet. The blinds were closed, and a fire was burning in the fireplace. Mr. White and his son Herbert were playing chess. Mr. White wasn't very good at the game, and he often made dangerous moves. His wife, a kind old woman with white hair, was sitting by the fire, knitting quietly. "Listen to that wind," Mr. White said after he made a mistake in the game and lost. "I hear it," Herbert answered, smiling. "Check. I don't think our guest will come tonight," Mr. White said, looking at the chessboard. "Checkmate," Herbert replied. Mr. White sighed loudly. "I hate living so far from everything," he said. "The road is full of mud, and the path is terrible. Only 2 houses on this street are lived in. It's horrible." "Don't worry, dear," said Mrs. White gently. "Maybe you'll win the next game." Mr. White looked up and saw his wife and son smiling at each other. He laughed and rubbed his gray beard. Then they heard the gate outside close with a loud bang. Heavy footsteps were coming to the door. "There he is," said Herbert. Mr. White quickly stood up and opened the door. He welcomed the visitor with warm words. The visitor also complained about the weather as he came inside. Mrs. White said kindly, "Tut, tut," and coughed a little as her husband came in with a large man who had red cheeks and small bright eyes. "This is Sergeant Major Morris," Mr. White said. The sergeant major shook hands with everyone and sat down by the fire. Mr. White brought him some whiskey and glasses and placed a copper kettle on the fire. After 3 drinks, the sergeant major's eyes were bright, and he began to talk. The White family listened carefully. He told stories about faraway places, about wars, illnesses, and strange people he had met. "He's been away for 21 years," Mr. White said to his wife and son. "He was just a boy when he left. Now look at him. He looks strong," said Mrs. White kindly. "I'd like to visit India," said Mr. White. "Just to see it. You're better off here," the sergeant major said, shaking his head. He drank the rest of his glass and sighed. "I want to see the old temples and magic tricks," said Mr. White. "Last time you told me something about a monkey's paw. What was that?" "Nothing," said Morris quickly. "Nothing important. A monkey's paw?" asked Mrs. White with interest. "It's just a little piece of magic," Morris said, trying to sound casual. The White family leaned forward, curious. Morris slowly took something from his pocket. "It looks like a small dried paw," he said. "Like a mummy's hand." He gave it to Mr. White, who looked at it and put it on the table. Mrs. White didn't want to touch it, but Herbert picked it up and looked at it closely. "What's special about it?" asked Mr. White. "A holy man in India put a magic spell on it," Morris said. "He wanted to show that fate controls people's lives, and if you try to change it, bad things happen." The paw gives 3 wishes to 3 different people. Everyone was silent. The room suddenly felt cold. "Why don't you use it, sir?" Herbert asked. I did, Morris said. His face turned pale. Did your wishes come true? Asked Mrs. White. Yes, he said and took another drink. Did anyone else use it? Asked Mrs. White. The first man who had it used all 3 wishes. I don't know what he wished for, but the last wish was for death. That's how I got the paw. Everyone was quiet. If you've had your wishes, then the paw is no use to you now, said Mr. White. Why do you keep it? I don't know, Morris said slowly. Maybe just habit. I thought of selling it, but it's caused too much trouble. And people don't believe in it. Or they want to try it first and pay later. If you could have another 3 wishes, would you take them? Asked Mr. White. I don't know, Morris said quietly. He held the paw for a moment, then suddenly threw it into the fire. Mr. White shouted and quickly pulled it out of the flames. Let it burn, Morris said seriously. If you don't want it, give it to me, said Mr. White. No, Morris said firmly. I threw it away for a reason. If you keep it, don't blame me if something bad happens. Burn it now while you still can. But Mr. White didn't listen. He held the paw and looked at it closely. How do I make a wish? He asked. Hold it in your right hand and say your wish out loud, Morris answered. But be careful. There are consequences. Mrs. White laughed. Sounds like a story from Arabian Nights. Why don't you wish for arms to help me with dinner? They all laughed, but Morris looked serious and grabbed Mr. White's arm. If you must wish, he said. Wish for something simple. The Monkey's Paw Part 2. The next morning was sunny, and everything looked normal. The family had breakfast, and they laughed about the night before. Did you wish for the money? Herbert asked his father. Yes, Mr. White answered. I wished for 200 pounds. Well, Herbert said with a smile. I don't see the money anywhere. It probably won't come, said Mr. White. And I don't really believe in the paw. Mrs. White laughed. Maybe the money will fall from the sky. They all smiled, and Herbert got ready to go to work at the factory. Before leaving, he said jokingly, If I never come back, don't blame the monkey's paw. His parents laughed, and he left for work. That afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. White sat in the living room. The house was quiet. Suddenly, they saw a man outside the gate. He wore a nice suit and looked uncomfortable. The man knocked softly. Mr. White opened the door. Can I help you? He asked. I was told to come here by the company. The man said. I'm from Ma and Megan's. Mr. and Mrs. White invited him in. He sat down, but he looked nervous and sad. Is something wrong? Mrs. White asked. I'm very sorry, the man said. There was an accident at the factory. Your son, Herbert. He got caught in the machine. He died instantly. There was silence. Mrs. White screamed. Mr. White sat quietly shocked. We are very sorry. The man said again. Your son was a good worker. The company wants to help. We offer you £200. Mr. White cried out in pain and fell to the floor. It was a dark and terrible time. The house was quiet. The parents buried Herbert, and the days passed slowly. They were both heartbroken. About a week later, one night, Mrs. White suddenly stood up from her chair. The paw, she said. The monkey's paw. Where is it? What? Asked Mr. White. The paw. We have 2 wishes left. We can wish for Herbert to come back. Mr. White was shocked. That's crazy. He's been dead for over a week. We can bring him back. She cried. Wish for him to come home again. Mr. White didn't want to. He died. Horribly. He was badly hurt. Do you really want to see him like that? Yes. She said. Please, wish for him to return. Mr. White slowly took out the monkey's paw. It felt cold and heavy in his hand. He closed his eyes. I wish my son alive again, he said. The wind blew louder outside. The candle flickered. But there was no sound. No change. They waited. Nothing happened. Disappointed, they went back to bed. But about an hour later, in the middle of the night, there was a knock at the front door. Soft. Then louder. Knock. 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 Mrs. White sat up. It's Herbert, she said. It's him. I know it's him. The Monkey's Paw Part 3. Mrs. White jumped out of bed and ran to the door. It's Herbert, she cried. He's back. I'll open the door. But Mr. White caught her arm. His face was pale. Wait, he said in a low voice. Don't open it. Why not? It's our son. You forgot, he whispered. He died, and we buried him. But you wished for him to come back. Yes, Mr. White said. But how will he look? He was in the grave for 10 days. The knocking came again. Louder now. Bang, bang, bang. Mrs. White broke free and ran downstairs. It's Herbert, she shouted. Let me open the door. Mr. White ran after her, but she was already unlocking the door. I'm coming, Herbert. I'm coming, she said. But the top bolt was high, and she was too short to reach it. Help me open it, she cried to her husband. But Mr. White didn't help. He was searching for the monkey's paw. Bang, bang, bang. The sound shook the whole house. Mr. White found the paw and held it tightly in his hand. He closed his eyes and whispered, I wish. I wish. He was gone. Suddenly, the knocking stopped. Everything was quiet. Mrs. White opened the door wide. There was nothing outside. Only the empty road. Cold wind blew through the open door.